Thank you, George. А тепер на продовження нашого святкування я запрошую голова Іллінойського відділу Українського конгресового комітету доктор Олег Строчук.
Зараз припала мені велика честь представити вам нашого головного прелегента. Степан Бандера народився в 70-му році в Канаді. Він є найстарший з п'ятьох онуків славної пам'яті провідника ОУН та провідним діячем українського визвольного руху Степана Бандери, котрий був підступно вбитий КГБ якраз 50 років тому. Отримуючи освіту в Канаді на журналіста, Степан працює вже 12 років в Україні по фаху та як редактором та перекладачем. Його репортажі та статті вміщуються в засобах медіа по цілому світі. It's a great pleasure for me personally and for all of you, I'm sure, to meet Stepan Bandera, our keynote speaker for today. Stephen is a Canadian-born journalist, editor, and translator who has lived in Ukraine for the past 12 years. He was born in Winnipeg in 1970. He's the eldest of 5 grandchildren of Stepan Bandera, a leader of the Ukrainian National Liberation Movement who was assassinated by the KGB 50 years ago, October 15th. Fluent in English and Ukrainian, his reports, analysis, and commentary have been carried by media outlets all over the world. Please help me welcome Stepan Bandera.
Шановна святкова громада, мене організатори попросили висловити промову англійською мовою, але пізніше, якщо буде цікаво, то я можу сказати все, що я думаю, і по-українськи. Але почнемо з того, що мене попросили організатори. Reverend Fathers, honored guests, fellow Ukrainians. Nearly 18 years ago to this day, an historic event occurred that resulted in the demise of an empire whose 70-year rule was truly evil for hundreds of millions of people. That event was the declaration of Ukraine's independence by the former Soviet Republic's legislature on August 21st, 1991, the event we have gathered to celebrate today, half a world away. It is an exceptional honor to speak about that hard-won freedom here in Chicago, in the state of Illinois, where Abraham Lincoln, the U.S. president who perhaps best embodies the selfless commitment to freedom and human rights for all, began his political career. In fact, the United States of Abraham Lincoln and the Ukraine of his peer and contemporary Taras Shevchenko provide a great starting off point for a brief sojourn through history that will help us appreciate the liberties we are saluting together today. Both Shevchenko and Lincoln devoted their lives to the fight for freedom of the downtrodden. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was issued at the same time serfdom was abolished on the territory we now call Ukraine. Lincoln was assassinated for his beliefs, while Shevchenko died before his dream of freedom was realized. Back then, in the 19th century, Ukraine was a land divided by 2 empires, the Austro-Hungarian in the west and Tsarist Russia, the east. Both empires would fall, paving the way for Ukraine's freedom. But independence was not gained with the abolishment of serfdom, and it took over a century and the defeat of yet another empire, that of the Soviet Union, to attain genuine independence. A century of oppression, terror, of revolutions, man-made famines, world wars. A century of genocide, ethnic cleansing, and mass deportations. The bloodthirsty rules of Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin. Decades of concentration camps, of Nazi Auschwitzes and Soviet gulags, of persecution and execution by the Gestapo and the KGB, before freedom was won. With that kind of history, it seems like a miracle that we even survived. The credit for that survival goes foremost to our grandparents and great-grandparents who were part of a truly remarkable generation. For they not only managed to survive the Holodomor, but had enough fight left in them to defeat Nazi Germany in 1945 and ultimately to defeat the Soviet Union in 1991. Against all odds, our grandparents fought the battles and scored the victories that secured our freedom. Some were fortunate enough to flee tyranny and pursue free lives in countries of opportunity, like right here in the United States of America. In cities like Chicago, Ukrainians enjoyed freedom of speech and expression, freedom of religion, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. They built churches and schools, published books and newspapers, founded community institutions, from dancing groups to sports teams, from Boy and Girl Scouts to national umbrella organizations, all who played their part in keeping the dream of a free Ukraine alive. Next came our parents' generation that was able to make that dream come true. Our parents continued to carry the torch and the fight for freedom. In the diaspora, their main enemies were ignorance, apathy, and complacency. Our parents' main accomplishment was putting Ukraine on the map. The mental map for those in America who, out of ignorance, disinformation, and propaganda, did not even know that a people called Ukrainians ever existed. Many were led to believe that everything east of Poland and west of China was a single country called Russia. The fight shifted from the battlefield to a battle for hearts and minds. Fax machines replaced submachine guns as the main weapons of information war. Decades of hard work paid off, and for those in the know, it did not come as a surprise when Ukraine declared its independence 18 years ago. Many members of our grandparents' and parents' generations who worked and fought so hard did not live long enough to see their dream of a free Ukraine come true. Those who did are now looking at our generation to continue building upon the foundation they laid, so the sacrifices of the previous generations are neither forgotten nor lost. The challenge in Ukraine today is to transform the former Soviet colony into a prosperous European nation. And objectively speaking, Ukraine has everything it takes to be a top 10 best country of the world to live in. The land is some of the best and richest in the world, and the people are as smart and as hardworking as anywhere else. Life expectancy should be as high as it is in the European Union, and the quality of life could very easily be on the same level we enjoy here in North America. Ukraine's geographical location at the crossroads of East and West, North and South, Europe and Asia, the Christian and Muslim worlds should, in theory, provide the country with some formidable advantages. So what's going wrong? Why is the country, once called the breadbasket of Europe, today considered to be an economic basket case? Part of the answer may be found in a joke often told Ukraine about the time in early history when God was giving out the lands of the earth to all the different peoples. When Ukraine's turn came up, God gave her one of the best possible locations on the planet. Lands that were replete with natural resources, with black earth so rich that anything could be planted and grow to provide the most bountiful harvest in the world. God gave Ukraine picturesque mountains and the Black Sea, hundreds of rivers and freshwater lakes, and waters and forests abounding with flora and fauna. Ukraine could not believe her luck and said to God, "Thank you, God, for your most generous gift. I don't know what I've done to deserve this. Why is it that I'm so lucky?" "Don't get ahead of yourself," God told Ukraine. "Just wait and see who I give you as neighbors." After centuries of warfare, Ukraine has developed good relations with most of its neighbors, but there is one to the northeast that can't stand to see Ukraine free and is still doing everything in its power to bring Ukraine back under its control. A resurgent Russia, whose leaders are accustomed to rule by force and despotism, do not want to let Ukraine go. The Kremlin continues to insert itself into Ukraine's internal affairs, meddling